Inside Beaver Dam High School athletics and activities, and it's our first edition of the program in 2025 as we bring in the distinguished Ryan Gerber from Beaver Dam High School. Ryan, it's been busy through the holidays and glad to finally catch up, I guess, officially on the record here with so many fun things happening with Beaver Dam High School.
Yeah, it's exciting to be back. The start of the year is off to a good start. We just started second semester, so lots of fun stuff going on, and the second half of our winter season starting up.
Yeah, and it's real fun. We'll kind of hit at all of our sports and activities today, but numerous teams in general in the conference race, which is kind of cool, isn't it? To see teams. It looks like into February, you're still in the mix for league titles.
Right, and when we started this year, we talked about how strong last year winter was, and so many teams that had chances to be a conference champion or go deep into the playoffs. We didn't know what to really expect this year because most of our teams are either very young or like experiencing coaching turnover, or you just there were some unknowns. So far, our teams have really rallied. That tradition of excellence and strength in the winter has really continued this year. So I'm really excited. We're seeing success across all of our athletics.
Let's start with girls basketball. TJ Julka's squad, as we head down the home stretch, tied with Wanakee on top of the Badger Large. They've got DeForest Thursday night, a game we want you to come out to the field house and watch that thing and support the Golden Beavers, but it's also on Daily Dodge TV and 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam. Ryan, TJ's done a great job. His girls have done a great job this year, haven't they, in a transition year?
Yeah, 100%. And they've been in some tough games. I think the big one was against Oregon, and just finding ways to win. That was the big question mark, and we talked about it shortly after that. How would this new staff respond in a tight game late in the game, having to draw something up, coming from behind, and then sealing the win? And certainly they have veteran players. Tia Donaldson, Shea Ashley, and Majolka are back, and they've kind of learned the ways of this program the last couple of years. But for the staff, just until you go through those experiences as a coach, you don't know how it's going to go. And I think they've so far done a tremendous job. They're sitting at 10-4, like you said, tied with Wanakee. We have played Wanakee. We lost at their place earlier in the season, but they're going to have to make a return, and that's kind of how that series has gone over the last few years. Splitting that series, going to Wanakee is always tough. So the girls are playing well. They had a nice finish to the Badger Challenge. This was the last year of the Badger Challenge in hoops. They knocked off Stoughton. They were up 20 points late in the game, and I think they ended up finishing that game off, winning by 12. So they're certainly getting production. They're certainly playing strong defense, but it really that will to win and close people out has really helped them this year, and I would expect that to continue going on with that big looming one with Wanakee coming up down the road.
Yeah, the Coach Julka, his schedule this year, they had Oostburg, they had number one ranked team Tulsa East on Monday. They have Laconia coming up, who's very well could win a third straight state championship. And, their non-conference schedule's loaded, and that only gets you ready as you talk to all the coaches. Tough non-conference schedules only make you more battle-tested for the conference races and get them ready for that Wanakee game, right?
Right. There's this whole discussion that goes on with coaching. How will you schedule your non-conference? And first of all, it starts with your conference, really. The Badger Conference is a strong conference traditionally year after year after year. So it could be understood maybe laying off and not having a tough non-conference because you're going to be tested in conference. That being said, if you want to get to that next level, if you want to continue to push to that state tournament, if you want to have success in the postseason, late in the postseason, and possibly get to the rest center, then you got to push yourself and you got to play tough competition. The one thing I really liked about this girls' schedule is, daunting as the non-conference was, and it is, they're testing themselves. And even if you lose some of these non-conference games and they drop that game to Tosa, that doesn't have any effect on your conference schedule. And frankly, Tosa is going to be a team that's going to be seeded very high in the postseason anyway. So really, it's a good game to test the girls. It's a good game to get some experience. I know that program's also been dealing with some sickness and illness that all of the teams have been doing. So again, just getting yourself battle tested, getting yourself ready for that postseason run. And it's funny, in some of our other programs we'll talk about later, That tough non-conference schedule where maybe you're coming up against it a little bit, it's already showing its effect by battle testing you for your conference schedule. So again, I'm really I'm a big believer in scheduling a tough non-con because it really sets you up for a lot of success not only in conference but later on in the postseason.
Yeah, and I can talk about things like this because we're not in the program, but because it's you got to get through the regular season. But you look at the postseason and then the sectional that Beaver Dam's in. There's a path. Sometimes you look at your sectional and you're like, oh, there's a huge roadblock here.
Mhm.
Big things you have to get over. But I know it's only January. It's January in the 20s here for January. But this team has a chance to make a pretty deep run here in the postseason if they can keep it together and keep playing good basketball here for the final month.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to the players on the court and making things happen. And the real big difference between teams that make that run late is really what experience do you bring into the postseason. This team has a few girls that are very battle tested that have been on very, very strong teams. Heck, they had starters that were on last year's team that was a game away from the state tournament. So that experience you rely on, and it's not just how they score over the course of the game. It's, can you make those free throws late in the game when the game's on the line? Can you get that turnover when you need that turnover instead of fouling? When you get that breakaway that somehow happens, can you put that layup away and just putting your opponent away, learning how to win. We've got girls on this team that have come up through the tradition of girls basketball here in Beaver Dam, and hopefully they're continuing it on and teaching the next generation that's coming through. Again, I really like where this team's at. You take the Tosa game, you burn that tape, you move on, you focus on DeForest, you take care of business in the Badger Conference, you put yourself in a position to play for a conference tournament championship, and then of course you get into the postseason and hopefully you're playing the best basketball all year.
Coach Ladrin's a boys basketball team. Also, they're getting after it as well here this season, and it's going to be fun to watch his squad as they head down the home stretch of the season.
Yeah, another program that's had a very tough non-conference, and of course, the Badger Conference in boys hoops is very tough, and they've seen some of those teams already. They'll have a second go around coming up, but they'll see Baraboo on Saturday in the Badger Challenge. And again, like the girls, this is the last year of the Badger Challenge. And that's a whole conversation for another show.
Yes.
But I'm going to say, and there might be some fans out there that are sad to see it go, but I don't think there's any athletic director that's sad to see the Badger Challenge go. There's just so many logistical nightmares. We're going to be playing Baraboo in that Badger Challenge, which is in the upper half of their league. They also sit in second or third place in the Badger Small. So this will be a good test for the boys. And by the way, a nice preview because Baraboo will be joining the Badger Large next year. So this is a future matchup for conference play. And we've played Baraboo. They typically have pretty good size and they can shoot it. So they've had a nice season so far. So this will be a good challenge for the boys. This is again another program where we didn't really know what we were getting. It's a younger team. They lost JT Call, which JT was the heart and soul of this program. But last year you saw EJ Salatel really emerge. They've got some really nice players back this year. Parker Blank, Parker Stobie, as Corey likes to say, the Parker brothers. They bring in through a transfer Isaiah Younger. So they've got pieces there, but how they all fit together and how they play really was a question mark at the beginning of the season. What we've learned to this point is they can put up points. This is a team that can score, and they've had some pretty gaudy numbers so far. The question is they don't have a ton of height, so how do you match up? And I think again that Oregon game. Where there was quite a few eyeballs on that game considering Oregon's players. Um, how do you match up? How do you play defense? And Coach Ladrin's staff, through their preparation and their coaching, were able to hold Vaughn to 9 points in the first half, 20 overall, and that's a pretty good day's work. So again, I believe in these players to be able to score, and I believe in the staff to be able to cook up some great game plans. This is another program that, you look down the stretch, or what can they do this year? But really, what is next year going to look like?
Yeah.
I think the next couple of years could be very exciting for this program.
Even with the youth on this team, they got to be a tough team to prepare for because you have different guys every night that are stepping up and leading the team. And just well, a pretty deep team, balanced team, and you can't just put your eye on, like, for example, you Beaver Dam. You thought about Von Carvala. They played Oregon. Beaver Dam, you can't really do that because there's so many different guys that have stepped up and kind of been the man in a game this year.
Well, and even we haven't even mentioned Ben Whitney,
Yes,
who's come
freshman.
off the bench and given significant minutes later is in the first part of the season, and had some big nights, second leading scorer in a couple games. So again, how do you prepare for a team that's got 5, 6, 7 guys that can score, and they can just kind of sub in, sub out, keep things fresh? I think the big question is matchups, right? With this team, with if you've seen the team, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Not a lot of size yet, and that'll come. But I think that's where the matchup concern is. But again, then it goes back to coaching. How do we set things up to put our guys in position? And that's why I believe we have such a strong staff. They've been able to do that. So again, on offense, all these guys that can score, and then defensively, how are we going to scheme it up to keep us in? I think this boys team is going to be a tough out when we get into the postseason.
I agree with you 100%. Side note, housekeeping note, it'll Beaver Dam going to Monona Grove to take on Baraboo. We will not have that game on DDTV or ESPN. Monona Grove's got a gymnasium that's kind of the old school kind in the middle of the building. We have trouble getting a signal out of there for both the radio and video. So I know MG does their own service to get the video out with some hardline stuff so people can watch that game. And then the two Monona Grove game, boys and girls, next month, Ryan, both you'll have to pick up through the Monona Grove signal. Just one of those things, technology sometimes, wins out in certain situations.
It's not a bad trip to go to Monona Grove. Plenty of
Yeah.
restaurants to stop at. It's not a bad place to be. So that might be, if you're looking at taking a one road trip this year, not a bad trip to go to Monona Grove.
On Saturday as well, it should be great. Hey, boys hockey right now, and we've talked about this at the rink, Ryan. I think when you talk about coach of the year consideration, the job that Doug Kraft and his staff have done with the boys hockey team this year, because they had so much youth. They had some leaders coming back, but graduated a lot. So much youth at the beginning of the year, and if you looked at the Beaverton boys hockey team first couple weeks of the season to where they're at now, it's been a phenomenal story. I think this year where they're hovering right around the 500 mark.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked, and this is, I guess, a little bit behind the scenes. We talked in the springtime, following last year's team who won a second consecutive Badger Conference, and then made a run in the postseason, knocking off Fond du Lac in the second round up at their ice. That was a pretty big high to come off of, and when we looked at this year's team, there were a lot of players on this current team that are freshmen that still had the ability to play another year in youth hockey. And for a lot of people listening to this, that might seem strange because, most sports, when you're a freshman, you play on the high school team. And hockey's a little bit different. They had some options to play down, and we weren't really sure what we were going to get. So at one point, we were talking like, are we going to have just a JV team? Are we going to have a team in general? And, that's a tough decision because you look at the seniors that you have back, not just here in Beaver Dam, but those kids in our co-ops. You want to be able to provide something for those guys as well. Through a lot of hard work in the off season, a lot of talking to people, a lot of reassurances, we were able to get a tremendous group to come up. And I think it's been a great decision by a lot of those families because these kids are getting experience at that varsity level against that level of competition that's only making them better. And that's not to say anything bad about youth hockey at all. But when you compete at that high level, it's very similar to what we were talking about with girls hoops playing a tough non-conference. When you play tough competition, you're going to level up a lot faster. And I think we're seeing that. So hats off to Coach Kraft and his staff. They have a young team. They knew that. They have some concerns about, where the scoring going to come from, where's defense going to come from. This team, the way they're skating and playing is light years ahead of where they started. The growth has been tremendous. And to even have themselves at a spot where we're talking about a 500 record is tremendous. Again, I think Coach Kraft is a heck of a coach. I think our winter coaching, just fraternity, I think we have school to school, we have the best winter coaches out there. Across all of our sports, but the job this hockey program has done has been nothing short of tremendous, and there's still a lot of work to be done. In fact, before you called, I was coach or talking to Coach Kraft about some scheduling stuff for next year already, and just talking about what the rest of this season looks like and where they think they can go. And again, the sky's the limit for this group. There's a lot of growth this year. There's going to be more growth next year, and I think in a couple of years, I think they're going to be a pretty good team that's going to surprise some people. So keep your eye on this program because again, it's trending in the right direction, and these kids are working really hard every single day.
And a couple of things. We will have the Oshkosh game Friday night on Daily Dodge TV. Mike Tronson will have a call on that one. And Ryan, Wisconsin Rapids, the weather, Mother Nature kind of set that one aside on Tuesday night. And from talking to you, that game is not going to be made up this year.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of space in our schedule the rest of the way. We didn't want to play that the same week as the playoffs. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to push that series back a year. So next year, and I actually emailed their AD this morning with a couple dates. We're going to play a home game with them next year, and then we'll go on the road the year after. So both schools felt it was in both of our interests to keep the series. So rather than just canceling a year and then moving on, we're going to just shift that series back a year. So we'll get a game here and a game there over the next 2 years, and I'm really happy about that. Working with Wisconsin Rapids, that's a class athletics department, and we're happy that we can get them and keep them on our schedule.
That's my alma mater, Ryan. So, but I didn't play hockey though. But they actually got their indoor rink my senior year. Otherwise, they were playing hockey outside until like 1993. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a good program, good big school, Division I school that you can get a good series with non-conference style. Girls hockey, Ryan, they're sitting on top of the Badger Conference, unbeaten. Mike Pogorelic, and again, his staff as well, has done a nice job this year, mixing some veterans that returned with a lot of youth this year, and they keep the train rolling.
Yeah, they're doing a great job. Again, I I mentioned it to you at the beginning of the winter season. I have high expectations for this program. They've shown tremendous growth over just my tenure here in Beaver Dam, and that is in part because of our coaches and what they're doing. But I got to lay the emphasis on the work that these girls are doing every single day and the work they did in the off season. They're the ones that are out there scoring goals. They're the ones making stops. They're the ones making the great passes to set people up. So these girls have done a tremendous job. Light years ahead of where they were a couple of years ago, but now the expectations are there. So how do you manage those expectations? They were able to sweep the Badger Conference the first rotation through. Now they got to do it again. And, everybody I think in the conference knew that Beaver Dam was going to be tough, but now the target is square on their backs. They have to be able to perform. So they got a couple tough games coming up. They're going to play the Metro Lynx, which would be the Middleton Co-op on Thursday, and that'll be a big game. That was a tight game the first time through, and that program is a solid program that's always right at the top of the rankings. So the girls have to be on the ready at home to get that win, to stay in control of their destiny. And the Cap City, they're looming. That was a tight game over in Sun Prairie. We're going to get them home later in the year. That game's still looming. So again, they've done a great job to put themselves in position to be successful and vie for that conference title. It's whether they can close out. Again, and I've mentioned it a few times on our talks, our postseason for girls hockey, because there is only one division, is really our conference slate. So if you're able to have success in the regular season and if you're able to capture that conference crown, that's only going to set you up for seeding in the postseason and set you up well. The big question I have for this program, how do you handle those expectations now? How do you reset goals to continue to stay hungry? Because again, that'll be really if they can answer that positively, that'll be what carries them on in these next couple weeks.
And much like basketball and the other sports, they also have been battling some injury and illness as well. They were able to, they played with a really short bench the last couple of weeks, and some of the younger girls were able to step up and maybe move into roles that they hadn't been in this year. And the coaching staff again, whether it be Coach Pogorelic, Coach McLaughlin, Coach Baines, and Coach Rhodes, they've done a nice job of getting younger kids ready and being able to to compete and maybe move up a line than what they had been, and they don't lose a beat.
Right, and I think the one constant through all of that is having a tough goaltender.
Yep.
And Emily Smeedema, who's been lights out, ever since she got to her first start. I mean, she's continuing to just be solid in that and just be a wall. I think the other night she had 50 saves again. So she's keeping them in despite injuries, despite illnesses. She's able to keep these girls in the game, and then let your players play and let them do what they're doing. The thing that I look at with this program right now, they have two lines with four really strong scorers. That's a tough matchup. Obviously everyone knows about Brenna Rhodes. I think right now she's fourth in the state in terms of scoring. But Addie Damon certainly had a lot of scoring to her name. Her sister Emerson's a heck of a scorer. She really was what led this program last year in scoring. And then Lillian Mansueto, who if she gets going and she gets hot in scoring, I mean, watch out for this program. So again, they've got that consistency in that. They've got four top line scorers, and then all the players that kind of are surrounding them are doing a great job of growing. Kind of like the boys, they've got a lot of youth on this program. Those girls, those younger players, are really leveling up. They're really growing and learning and getting that great experience. Again, this program is setting itself up for success, not just this year, but in the future.
Yeah, and tomorrow night, Thursday night, as we speak, that game at the Metrolinx is a huge one in the grand scheme of the Badger Conference. And again, we will have a plethora. We'll have all the home games on the air for hockey on Daily Dodge TV. Just people always ask, it's hard for us to go on the road for hockey, just because hockey rinks are sometimes very hard to get signals out of. Last year, we did the playoff game at the rink the Beavers are going to be at last year. We couldn't get a signal, Ryan, until about 2 minutes before we were supposed to go on the air, because there's no hard line, there's no Wi-Fi, and sometimes getting like your 5G signal out of rinks are hard. So that's if people ask why we don't go on the road for hockey, because it's always a 50-50 shot if we're going to actually get on the air.
Right. And it happens. I'm just, you guys do a lot and cover a lot of sports. I think it's a great asset. And again, I don't know if people realize how lucky they are to have what we have here. So yeah, we'd love you to go on the road. Totally understand it, but we're certainly appreciative of everything you guys cover throughout the year.
Well, wrestling, Tim Winker's wrestling squad. Also, before you know it, we're going to be in the postseason for the wrestling, aren't we, Ryan?
Yeah. The conference tournament's coming up. This season's just flying by. The wrestling program, they've got a couple guys out as well. That's kind of been a theme throughout our program, all of our programs this winter. Their next big thing for a varsity level is going to be next Friday, the 31st, when they close out their home schedule against Wanakee. Wanakee right now leads the conference standings for the Badger Large. This is a match or a duel coming up in a couple weeks that if this Beavers team wants to vie for conference championship, they got to win. They did wrestle Wanakee over the weekend at Muskego, and their duels they did get beat, but the Beavers were giving up 4 or 5 weights and forfeits. They just had some guys out, and just it didn't work out. So I know they've got their eyes tested on Wanakee. And so wrestling, how it works in the Badger Conference, it's a point system for conference championships. So for each dual win, you get a point, and then you get points based on how you finish at the conference tournament, which this year will be in DeForest. That will be February 8th. So for the Beavers to win a conference title, they're going to have to beat Wanakee heads up. And then, frankly, they're going to have to finish ahead of Wanakee at the conference tournament. Now, they do have a loss heads up against Milton, and that's going to hurt them too. So, bottom line, they got to beat Wanakee, and then they have to have a good day at DeForest on the 8th. Is this team able to do that? Absolutely. They've got a tremendous amount of firepower, and frankly, I think they're a better tournament team than a dual meet team. They got guys that are going to be able to place high at the tournament and score points. So, as long as they take care of business against Wanakee, which is no small task, I think they have a shot. And, you look at guys like the Grohl brothers, they've put themselves in a position to vie for a conference title and make a nice long postseason run. Avery Femwright and Easton Warden certainly have as well. So a lot of guys that, individually should have very exciting postseason runs this year.
And again, once you get out and back the Beavers on the 31st, we'll also have that one on Daily Dodge TV. Boys,
I should mention too, before we head on,
yeah.
I should mention our girls wrestling program was able to wrestle in the duel against DeForest when we were over there, and they did really well. I know Charlie Winnicke's back. She's had some just different things going on this year. She, remember, was a state qualifier last year, and she's already wrestled a couple of girls that she competed against last year at the state tournament and beaten them. So she's another one we want to keep our eye on as we move into the postseason. We're actually going to host here in Beaver Dam the very first ever WIAA regional wrestling invite. That'll be Friday the 14th. That's the night before the boys wrestle regional. So we're actually hosting the regionals in both girls and boys. But this will be the first time in state history that the girls have their own regional tournament. We're very proud to host it here, and we're hoping that our girls have a great season or postseason. But we're certainly going to keep our eye on Charlie as she looks to make it back to the Kohl Center.
Should be awesome there again. Girls wrestling, it's great to see that thing explode, and the numbers just continue to rise year in and year out. Boys swimming, Ryan, they continue to work hard as they kind of reboot this program this year.
Yeah, again, this year is all about growth and development and really keeping the program going. We finished up really our conference slate, really, and now we're looking at just some non-conference stuff. They'll be down in Fort Atkinson on Thursday to get some more time in the pool. But this is another program that we're very happy that the Prime brothers, John and Michael, took over and to breathe some new life into this program. Again, Beaver Dam High School, I think we all know, we don't have a pool here, so we swim over at the Y. So it's not like, they can leave their classes and go to practice in the pool. They're having to make some adjustments, and the commitment level that the parents have made to making this possible has been tremendous. They're practicing at 6 o'clock in the morning every morning over at the Y in order to get pool time. So again, I'm very proud of the work they've put in. They continue to shed time off their events, and that's really what you want to see. We're not necessarily winning dual meets head to head. We just don't have the numbers to do that. But it's the personal growth, the individual growth that our kids are making, and it's certainly there and noticeable.
Inside Beaver Dam High School athletics and activities with Ryan Gerber. Ryan, a couple of other things. I know the weather yesterday postponed a lot of stuff, including the parade of bands, and I had somebody ask, and you're working on to see if you can find a date to make that thing work, because that's a pretty big event to get on, right?
Yeah, it's a big event, and it's a tradition here in Beaver Dam, so we are looking at a date. It's just finding a date that works not only with all stakeholders, but that doesn't run up to something we already have scheduled, because again, that event is in the field house and takes up that whole space. So we can't schedule that the same day we're hosting a WI regional basketball game or whatnot. So I am working with Kyle Hendrickson and his group, the music group, to find an appropriate date. We're probably looking in the springtime to make that happen, but certainly it is a priority that we reschedule this and provide this not only for our kids, but our community. And we very well know that people look forward to this. The community looks forward to it. People come from all over to see it. So it's something we're doing the best we can to reschedule and find a date.
That's great too. I know Solo Ensemble is coming up in the next couple of weeks, and they have also, I believe that the spring play has been cast, and they'll be getting practices here in the very near future as well. So there's lots of stuff going on the art side, both in the vocal and the music side and the acting side.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to. We're hosting District Solo Ensemble. That'll be March 8th. That's a Saturday. That'll be in the morning. We're actually hosting the girls basketball sectional final that evening. Unless the WI decides to move it. But that'll be a busy day. But the solo ensemble, typically in the past, it's just been Beaver Dam students. We're opening it up to some of the area schools, so that's a little bit bigger than it has been in the past. That's a big event that our community, our performing arts community, our school community, they all take very important. And I know Mr. Lefebvre has really been a driving force behind that, and he wants to continue to build that. So that's something we'll host on the 8th. And hopefully we have individuals qualifying to the state level solo ensemble, which I believe is April 26th. That's a Saturday up in UW Oshkosh. So that'll be coming up. I know Miss Tunks and her group with the spring play, that's getting casted. They're putting some things in place. I know Mr. Kutzler is helping them out building sets, and he's been in here to talk about what's possible and what we can do. So that's going. We'll be hosting the Swan Synchro event. We'll be helping them out again. That's over at the Family Center on February 15th, but will be a landing spot for them. as we have in the past. So lots of stuff going on, lots of stuff to be excited about here in Beaver Dam. And we're doing the best we can to put on a first-class experience for everyone.
Hey, Ryan, I appreciate the time you always give us for this segment in this program. If people have any information or looking for information on Beaver Dam High School athletics and activities, how do they find it? Where do they find it?
Okay. Don't Google search Beaver Dam High School athletics because you'll go to the old page. So go to our high school website and then click on activities and athletics. That'll come to our new site. All the information you're looking for can be found there. Or if you don't want to do any of that, just give us a call. Myself, Mr. Keach, we can help you out. Certainly always look forward to hearing from people in the community.
Ryan, thanks for the time, and we'll chat next week.
Thanks, Wade.
This has been Inside Beaver Dam High School Athletics and Activities on 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam.